So millions and millions of Americans want to know, how does President Trump plan to stimulate the U.S. economy? Well, that's the question we're going to answer in today's video, because everything that the Trump administration has been doing so far has actually been contributing to higher prices. Think about it. Tariffs on goods coming in from China, coming in from Canada and Mexico, those are inflationary. It's going to cause us to pay more. But what is the Trump administration doing to provide more benefits to the American people? Think about this. We aren't seeing more money get contributed to Social Security and other programs because we are attempting at this time to deport millions of people, which is going to cause some economic pain temporarily. Today I want to explain what's going on and what the Trump administration is planning to do to actually bring down costs and stimulate the U.S. economy, which means more money in your pocket. So I'm going to break all this down in just a moment, but all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. Okay, so how bad are things getting? Well, in order to actually see what is happening in the U.S. economy, we need to go to the recent CPI report that just came out this morning. Look at this. It says consumer prices rise 0.5% in January, which is higher than expected, as the annual rate has now ticked up to 3%. Now, I want to read you some key facts here, some of the statistics from this CPI report that came out just today. Again, this is the CPI report for January. Look at this. It says CPI accelerated a seasonally adjusted 0.5% for the month, putting the annual inflation rate at 3%, both higher than expected. Core CPI ran at 0.4%, which means 3.3% annually is what it's at. Again, it's above the forecast. Core CPI strips out food and strips out gas. Okay. Other than that, it's the same thing. So food and gas are two of the things that are causing inflation to go up. Look at this. It's not just that though. Shelter costs continue to be a problem for inflation, rising by 0.4% for the month. Food prices jumped 0.4% and energy prices climbed 11% as gas rose not 11%. Energy prices climbed 1.1% as gas prices rose 1.8% as well. Now, here's why this is an issue. The Trump administration is actually eyeing more tariffs, specifically on the EU, potentially on other countries like BRICS nations, potentially as high as 100%. Those will be inflationary. We are going to see inflation go up, which means the American people will have less money. But what is the Trump administration doing? Well, here's what Trump says today. President Trump says interest rates should be lowered to go hand in hand with his tariffs. Interest rates, they need to go down. Keep in mind, this is what's happening. There's tariffs that were just proposed the other day, which will go into effect, I believe, on March 12th. But Trump is going to place tariffs on steel and aluminum, which is going to increase prices of canned goods. This means canned food. This means beer, sodas. It's going to increase the prices of cars and trucks. It's also going to increase the price of home appliances, building materials, bikes, and things like that. So this is going to cause additional inflation, especially when it's going into home appliances and building materials. Again, steel and aluminum, right? The concern here is we are about to see prices jump, not slowly tick up. They're going to jump in the next couple months. But it's how do we go against this? How do we actually counter this? That's what Trump is talking about. Let's lower interest rates. Now, President Trump doesn't actually have any say in interest rates. That's all up to the Federal Reserve. Okay, I want to read a little bit of this article to you, though. It's an article from CNBC. Now, here's what it's saying. Trump says interest rates should be lowered, something which would go hand in hand with upcoming tariffs. Let's rock and roll, America. That's what he said over on Truth Social. Now, The comments come a day after Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said policymakers don't need to be in a hurry to lower rates as they watch progress in inflation. Other officials have said they are also are evaluating the potential impacts that tariffs will have on prices, though Powell has avoided commenting directly on the issue. Says shortly after taking office, Trump demanded that interest rates be lowered immediately, though he has no direct authority over the Fed. Then, a couple days after Trump was in the Oval Office, the Fed had a meeting, said they were not going to adjust rates, and President Trump agreed that holding rates steady at that time was a good idea. But things are changing now, because now we're seeing prices are going to go up. So the Trump administration is trying to figure out how can we stimulate the economy? Because if prices go up, that means less spending. That means businesses are getting less revenue. There's less profit. And in the end, that means less growth. President Trump has all been about growing, building, right? That's what he's been about for decades. And he's not going to switch. He's not changing at this time. So how is this going to impact the American people? Well, according to reports, President Trump is likely going to push the Fed to make decisions quicker, to get the Fed on board and understand what Trump is going to do. Because here's how the Fed works. The Federal Reserve normally waits to see how inflation's going. Are we seeing additional inflationary policies? Are we seeing prices are ticking up for homes? Is it becoming more expensive to build? Right? They're looking at the jobs report. Are we seeing more jobs available? Are the American people working? Are wages going up? Hours, are they increasing? Things like that. And the Fed's job is to keep things in line, hopefully get to a 2% inflationary target, but that hasn't happened. You're at 3% now. We're 1% over the Fed's target. It doesn't look like we're going back down anytime soon. So the Fed looks at things that have already happened to dictate how they're going to make changes in the future. Here's what Trump wants according to reports. According to reports, President Trump wants something very simple. To let the Federal Reserve know this is his plan. This is what he's going to do. He's going to implement tariffs on all these different countries. It is going to cause additional inflation. But at the same time, can President Trump work with the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell? And they both, again, President Trump gives him the plan so that the Fed Chair Jerome Powell can make a decision early to, okay, you are going to implement tariffs on this date, which means probably a month later, inflation will rise. So we are going to cut rates right about the same time you are imposing these tariffs. Right? That's what we're about to see. But not only that, President Trump is also looking at other ways to provide more money back into the American people's pocket. So yes, lower inflation rates, lower the interest rates, right? Even though inflation is going up, right? If we lower rates, here's the concern, we're already seeing inflation go up. Lowering rates usually just means we spend more money. That's kind of where it's difficult. If we see rates go up, shouldn't the Federal Reserve increase rates to bring rates back down, or the inflation rate back down? That's where it becomes tricky. But again, that's one thing that President Trump wants to do. The next thing, he wants to put a cap on interest rates for credit cards at just 10%. This looks like it is something that many lawmakers are taking serious. However, there's going to be a lot of pushback from banks and lenders. So we'll see what happens there. As far as increasing any benefits like food stamps, it's highly unlikely. Social Security benefits, it's not going to happen right now. Social Security has too many issues. We're not going to lower the price for Medicare. It's just something that can't be done at this time. But the Trump administration is looking at all avenues to try to give the American people a little bit more so that they can actually do something with it and live their lives. So, as we get more information as to what he's planning to actually stimulate the U.S. economy and put more money back into the pockets of the American people. I promise I will bring you all the latest news and updates. But as of today, that is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.